Okay, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Teresa Campos. I'm with the Santa Clara City Library and I'm here at the Central Park Library. I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us today with our tour of the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center. But before we begin, I just want to quickly mention that if you were not able to make it to the full program today, or if you want to watch it again, or if you have friends or family that you think that might be interested in it, we are going to be doing this again next month, October 27th at 6 p.m. I will drop a link in our chat today that will let you register now if you need to, or you can send it to your family and friends and let them know that they can also register. Another program that I'd like to promote, because the library is a place where we like to keep our community informed and make sure that we have a lot of our community resources available, is that we do have an author event happening next week on September 30th. We have Jose Badi, who is a poet and essayist who has written a debut book with a collection of poetry. I am also going to drop that link in our chat today, so then you're able to register. So if you're interested in hearing more about a local poet, please register today. You will see that there might be a number of people named Teresa Campos in the chat, but if you'd like to feel free to rename yourself if you'd like. That is just a generic link. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce KJ Scott and Blanca Sanchez Cruz, who are here with us from Valley Water. They are both public information representatives. And so I'd like to pass this over to them and welcome our presentation.
Thank you so much. We are so happy to be here with you today to tell you about the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center and some of the work that we're doing as we are looking for ways to bolster and strengthen the resiliency of our local water supply. When you came into the session, you saw a pre-tour survey that's currently up. I'm going to keep it up for about another minute or so. So if you have not had a chance to actually submit your responses, we ask that you please take a minute to go ahead and complete that survey. Once again, we'll keep it up for a few more, about a minute while I actually share my screen so we can get started. And here we go. Hopefully you're all now seeing my screen. KJ, can I get a thumbs up if you're able to see the? Fantastic. All right. So once again, we are from Valley Water, and we are here to tell you a little bit more about the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center, as well as the work that we're doing countywide to explore and expand water reuse. Given the fact that we are currently facing an extreme drought, it's just very front of mind in terms of what else can we do to make sure that we're bolstering and protecting our water supply. So as I already mentioned, my colleague KJ Scott is with me today, and he'll be co-facilitating this tour with you today. And my name is Blanca Sanchez. So on our agenda for today, as we get started with today's tour, we are going to provide you with a quick overview of Valley Water, our mission, and the work that we do in Santa Clara County as a way of setting a context so that you understand how water reuse and the Purification Center fits into the work that we do in Santa Clara County. Then we'll do our actual virtual tour. We'll do a quick pit stop at the regional wastewater facility, the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility, before then going on to what's going to be the bulk of our tour today, which is the Purification Center. We are going to be having an opportunity for you to ask questions. Please feel free to start submitting your questions at any point during the tour through the Q&A function on your Zoom toolbar. You can put them in the chat as well if you're having any trouble with the Q&A button. However, the chat can get a little busy and sometimes we can lose track of questions. So it's usually easier for us to keep track of them in the Q&A. So if you're able to use that feature, please. And with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and pass it on to my colleague, KJ, so that we can get started. KJ?
Thank you, Blanca. Once again, welcome everybody to the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center virtual tour. As Blanca said, please go ahead while that poll is still up. I believe it's up. Please go ahead and fill out that pre-tour survey poll. We want to hear back from you. And it's closing in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So this will be an interactive presentation. So get your questions and your chat fingers ready. Okay. So we have some questions in store for you as well. Okay. You will not be the only ones asking the questions. All right. So let's talk about Valley Water. So Valley Water is the new name, formerly known as the Santa Clara Valley Water District. So now we're Valley Water for short. You may still see some of our signs around here and there. And so we're slowly phasing out the old signs and bringing in the Valley Water signs. All right. And so there are 3 main core services that we provide. So first, we provide safe, clean, reliable drinking water for the Santa Clara County. Secondly, we provide flood protection for the Santa Clara County. This includes taking care of all streams within the county. And third, but not at all the least, is environmental stewardship. So, we want to make sure our community has safe water for many generations to come. In order to do so, we have to take care of our environment. This is something that you all can help with in your daily lives as well. We just had a coastal cleanup day where volunteers come out and help clean up trash around the area, the areas in which they live in. Valley Water provides supplies to all of these volunteers, and we go out there as well. And we just picked up around 21,000 pounds of trash out and about in the Santa Clara County. One year we picked up about 53,000 pounds of trash. So this is something that we can all pitch in with. And so these are things that we take very seriously. All right, so moving forward, who do we serve? Well, Valley Water is governed by a 7-member board of directors. We serve nearly 2 million residents in 15 cities. We have about 4,700 direct well owners. And the water district, which we are a wholesale water provider, okay? So what that means is the water that you receive at your house indirectly comes from us. It comes from one of the retailers, in which there are 13 local water providers, 13 retailers in which we distribute water to. And one of those retailers are responsible for the water coming through your pipes within your home. And so speaking of these 13 local water providers, they use the groundwater basins along with other sources to deliver drinking water to homes and businesses within the county. So we have what we call a Santa Clara County's comprehensive water system map that you are viewing right here. Here in the South Bay, we have 10 reservoirs that we pull water from and 4 water treatment plants, all right? If you want to learn about all of the water treatment plants and other things that Valley Water has to offer, I encourage you all to please take our water infrastructure tour series. We will drop a link later in the presentation so you can have access to that. So you can learn more about the other 3 water treatment plants that we're not going to talk about today. The other 3 water treatment plants, by the way, all deal with our drinking water system, all right? But the fourth and final water treatment plant that you're going to learn about today is the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center, indicated there in the purple. By the way, if you ever see a shade of purple that looks like that on your screen, anywhere out and about in the community, whether it's a pipe or a sign, just know that is recycled water flowing through those pipes. And so you're going to learn about that today. So from now on, I promise you, you're going to start noticing more of the purple around your communities. All right. On this map, real quick, the red lines represent imported water from the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. The orange pipes represent imported water coming from state and federal water projects through the Delta Conveyance System. And the green pipes represent the water that is being treated and brought out to the retailers. All right. I also like to mention that there are 10 reservoirs in which we pull water from as well. All right. So remember what I said earlier. You will not be the only ones asking the questions today. We're also going to ask questions. So speaking of which, we have our first poll question for you all. And so the first question is, how much of our water supply do you think is local? All right. So out of all of Santa Clara County's water supply, how much of it do you think comes from a local source or by local means? Do not worry about having the wrong answer. This is all for educational purposes. We are here to learn, to take in, and hopefully by the end of this presentation, you all will become water ambassadors, if you're not already, to help spread the word about not only recycled water, but also purified water and the plans that we have for purified water moving forward. Okay, I see your answers coming. Oh, everybody, oh, not quite. I see some more people. I see some more people haven't answered yet. Got to turn in your quiz scores. What's going on? Blanca soon will give me the countdown. All right. She's going to give me the countdown soon. You don't want to turn in your homework late. There are repercussions for that. And we're closing in 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. And so Blanca is now going to go ahead and provide the answer for you all.
All right. Thank you, KJ. So most of you said 30%, and that is actually correct. So what you're seeing in front of you right now is the typical breakdown of our water supply in a typical normal year. As I mentioned before, we are in an extreme drought. So our current water portfolio is anything but typical. So in a typical year, about half of our water is coming in from external sources to Santa Clara County. 40% coming through the San Joaquin, Sacramento River Delta, and 10% coming through the Hetchy Reservoir, which is a San Francisco public utility. Now, because we are in a drought year, unfortunately, that imported water is not as readily available as it has been in the past. And we've actually faced very, very extreme cuts to the water that we're receiving from the sources. What that means is that then now we have to figure out another way to continue to meet the needs of Santa Clara County. 30% of our water in a typical year is local. So that's the water that we're capturing in our reservoirs that we're using from our groundwater basin. 15% is conservation. So what this means is that we've actually been able to calculate how much we've changed the way that we use water in the county. And through our conservation efforts, have actually managed to make about 15% of the water is water that we were able to save in one area so that we can use it for other purposes. Now, right now, the reason that we're asking our community to conserve as much as possible is because that 50% from imported sources is not there. So we have to make up the difference somehow. The cheapest, easiest way to do that is by saving water. The other way that we can do it is by actually tapping more heavily into our groundwater resource, which is very critical during a drought. But then at that point, we have to contend with putting that resource into an increased risk. If we're extracting too much water and we're not able to replenish it, we're actually risking the integrity of that source for a number of reasons. One is it can cause subsidence, which means that some of our surface and underground infrastructure could become vulnerable or damaged. It also means that when subsidence happens, the storage capacity of the groundwater basin is actually decreased, which is actually not a good thing for us long-term because we can never restore that storage capacity. And so we want to make sure that we are being very careful while we are tapping more heavily into our groundwater, that we try to protect it as much as possible to make sure that we can have that resource available long-term. So that leaves us with our last segment, which is 5%. Currently, only 5% of our water supply needs is met through recycled water. And this is an area that offers great potential because we already have the water that we are going to need today in Santa Clara County. We had it here today. So it's a matter of how do we become better at recapturing that water so that we can use it to continue to meet our growing needs. Now, Valley Water has done a good job at building this diverse portfolio. For example, right now, we're in a drought, that the imported sources are not as plentiful. We can shift, and tap into the different sources so we can continue to meet our needs. However, there's still a number of risks that we have to continue to face. One of them, and once again, very real to us right now, is drought and climate change. So this is one of those imported sources we were talking about. So this is a Lake Orville, and this is the largest reservoir that we have in the state of California. It's an important water source, not just for us, but for the entire state. And you can see here the water levels between 2017, which was that year that we had a lot of rain, and April of this year. Now we actually have an updated photo. This is what it looked like as of July of 2021. And you may have heard about in the news that, it's a lot of our state reservoirs are very, very depleted, reaching historic lows. So drought and climate change is very real. It's not going away. It's part of the California reality. And we have to be better equipped and suited to make sure that we can continue to meet the needs of our communities, even in times of drought. This is also, drought can also impact the negative impacts to our water supply, but population growth is another thing we have to contend with. Our water supply is not growing. As a matter of fact, it could be argued that it's actually decreasing because of climate change and drought and things along those lines. But our population is growing. So we have more people that need that water supply and we're trying to meet their needs with what is in essence a finite supply. And finally, the aging infrastructure. Most of our infrastructure that KJ was talking about, our reservoirs, most of them were built in the 30s and 50s. They need to be retrofitted to make sure that they can continue to meet our growing water demand and the infrastructure that needs to be in place to be able to support that water and that water system. So aging infrastructure it's an ongoing challenge for Valley Water that needs to be contended with on a yearly basis, year round. So in terms of what are we doing to keep our infrastructure up to date, one of the projects you may have heard about is the Anderson Seismic Retrofit Project. Anderson is actually the largest reservoir that we have in the Valley Water system. Now, the fact that it's down is significant. The fact that it's down during the drought is even more significant because basically we've had to empty out Anderson due to an order that came in from the Federal Energy Commission, basically asking us to empty it out because of concerns with the seismic stability of the dam itself. So we are in the process of retrofitting, which actually is going to require us to completely tear down the dam and rebuild it in order to make sure that it's seismically sound and that we can maximize the storage capacity of this reservoir and operate it while making sure that we're not bringing some undue risk to the community. But during a time of drought, that's about 50% of our surface storage capacity that is currently out of commission, which is a significant loss to that surface storage capacity. The other things that we're exploring is actually increasing and bolstering that surface storage capacity. And one of the projects that Valley Water is currently considering is an expansion of the Pacheco Reservoir. Pacheco Reservoir is a relatively small reservoir in the boundary between San Benito and Santa Clara County. It currently only holds about 5,500 acre feet. That's the capacity. So that's enough water for about 55,000 people for a year. The expansion project, the actual current reservoir is pretty in disrepair. Definitely needs a lot of fixing and a lot of patching up, as you can see in this picture. The proposed project would actually build a brand new dam at the same location that would increase the capacity of this facility to 140,000 acre feet. That would be enough water to supply 1.4 million people for an entire year in the event of an emergency. In an emergency, we're talking about, for example, the current emergency we're facing right now in terms of drought, where that imported water is not available. If there was any disruptions to the conveyance system for that imported water during a typical year, this would be one way that we could supplement, once again, the loss of another water supply through one that we have here locally and we manage locally. So when completed, or if completed, the Pacheco Reservoir will in essence double our surface storage capacity. So on the left-hand side, the footprint that you see of the 10 reservoirs that Valley Water currently owns and operates, that footprint would actually fit within the footprint created by the new Pacheco Reservoir. All right, so that gives you a quick overview of Valley Water, and now we're going to dive deeper into this water reuse and advanced water purification. So I'm going to actually pass it on to KJ as we head on over to the regional wastewater facility. KJ?
Thank you, Blanca. And from this image you all see here, this is a top-down overview of the two facilities that we're going to be talking about today. First is the top left facility, the big one. That is the San Jose, Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. And then on the bottom there, that is the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center, all right? So let's talk a little bit about the Regional Wastewater Facility so you understand why is that significance for this presentation. Well, the San Jose, Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility is the supplier of the water that goes to the Purification Center, all right? And so this facility treats up to an average of 100 million gallons per day of wastewater. Wastewater is any water going down the drain with inside your home. So a sink, your bathtub, your washing machine, your dishwashing unit, your toilet, etc. All right. So any drain with inside your home. So as soon as it goes down the drain and it goes off into the pipes, it's going to the regional wastewater facility. All right. And so as you all know, you all create wastewater every day, right? We wash our hands. We do what we have to do. And so that water, if there's a way that we can turn around that water in a quicker fashion, i.e. the Purification Center, then it is advantageous for us so that we can bolster our local water supply. That is the main idea here. So keep that in mind, all right? And so what happens is when that water leaves your home and it goes to the regional wastewater facility, this water is treated for up to 10 hours of treatment before it is considered to be secondary treated water. And that secondary treated water is the water that is sent to the Purification Center to be purified, all right? So stick with me. I don't want to confuse any of y'all, but stick with me from there, all right? So we are at this secondary treated water phase, and we have some graphs here to show you very soon. But before we do, I have to make sure you all are familiar with the water cycle, all right? Because the water cycle is essentially what the Purification Center can help speed up. And the water cycle is a built-in earth-made, right, system in which Earth naturally replenishes water on its own. So ocean water or whatever water that is out and about can get evaporated, goes into the sky. We see it as clouds, it condenses, then eventually comes down as rain, precipitation, and it does it all over again, all right? So all the water here on Earth has been used forever. Now, the only issue with the water cycle, if there is an issue, is that sometimes this can take a long time. If you're a small water molecule at the very bottom of the ocean, there could be years, centuries before you're even evaporated again up into the sky. Well, we have so many residents in Santa Clara County, we may not have that time. As you all know, we don't have decades and centuries before we can use that water again. So if there's a way that we can turn over this wastewater that we create every day in a timely fashion, then we can create an essential and system for ourselves in order to bolster our local water supply so that we do not have to rely on so much imported water, especially in a drought in which we are in currently, all right? And so the Purification Center is simply a model to speed up Earth's natural process of recycling water in the purified form. So here we have a graph chart for you all to view, describing what is called total dissolved solids, short for TDS, TDS for short, I should say. What total dissolved solids is a measurement of the dissolved solid content within the water. So when the water leaves your home and goes to the regional wastewater facility, the regional wastewater facility will initially take out all of the large objects out of the water, all the suspended solids we can see with our naked eye, right? And remove those objects from the water. Once that water is now considered secondary treated water, this water is sent to the Purification Center. A portion of this water is sent to the Purification Center, I should say, for purification. And at that point, the Purification Center's job, is to remove all of the dissolved solids out of the water that we cannot see. These are microscopic solids, all right? So on this graph, if you notice on the very right-hand side, seawater. Seawater has about 35,000 TDS. Most of this is salt content, as you can all imagine. That's a very high number of TDS, all right? And we're gonna talk more about seawater later. In the gray column right next to that, to the left, is the secondary treated water that I talked about earlier. So after 10 hours of treatment at the regional wastewater facility, the water is now considered to be secondary treated wastewater. I'm sorry, secondary treated water, right? And this water is now at 800 TDS, 800 total dissolved solids. That is the water that is sent to the Purification Center all the way on the left-hand side of this chart to be purified, eventually down to 40 TDS. That's very clear, pristine water, all right? And so that is the idea here. And later on, what's going to happen is we're going to take that 40 TDS water, we're going to blend it with water, which is called tertiary water. The tertiary water is the water that was not sent to the Purification Center. Only 10 million gallons of the wastewater coming from the regional wastewater facility is actually cleansed and sent to the Purification Center. The other 100 or so million gallons remains at the regional wastewater facility for further treatment. After further treatment, that water is considered tertiary water. So we blend the tertiary water with the purified water, creating an enhanced recycled water solution indicated there in the middle of your screen in purple. And that is 500 TDS. At 500 TDS, the water is clear enough and for plants to use, for us to use this water for recycling, agriculture, and industrial purposes, and also landscaping. I'm sorry. So landscaping, agriculture, and industrial purpose. All right. On the left-hand side in the green graph there, that is the Santa Clara County tap water that is flowing through your pipes as we speak. It's around 250 TDS. We put that visual there so you have an idea of TDS count. Your tap water is totally fine to use and drink, to use at your own discretion at home. TDS does not describe how clean water is. It only describes how clear it is, how many minerals are in the water, right? And even some drinking water have high TDS count because there's a lot of minerals in it, depending on the type of water that you like to drink. All right. So that is why we have it there, just so you have an idea of what TDS looks like. All right. So moving forward, these are our three main processes that the Purification Center uses: microfiltration, reverse osmosis, and ultraviolet light disinfection. And on the right-hand side, you see the contaminants that are generally taken out at each one of these steps. All right. And we're going to talk about these in more length very shortly. And so right now, what are we doing with this water? As I said earlier, is that we're just using this purified water to blend with our already recycled water system. And by doing that, we are creating an enhanced recycled water solution at 500 TDS used for industrial, landscaping, and agricultural purposes. All right. So as you can see there, the water leaves your home. It's either going to go to the Purification Center or remain at the regional wastewater facility. A portion of that will blend together and be sent off for recycled water purposes. All right. In the future, we're going to talk about that later on at the end of the tour, what we want to do with this water once it leaves the Purification Center to help bolster our local water supply. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into our virtual walking tour as if you are all on campus. I encourage you all to please visit us in person when you are able to. Right now, the campus is not open for the public, but when we open back up, we encourage you all, please come take a tour in person. There's nothing like seeing things in person. We even have displays for you all to touch and get a feel for it, just so you understand what all takes place at the facility. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to my colleague Blanca so she can get us started on our walking tour.
Thank you, KJ. So very quickly, just as a quick background, the Purification Center actually opened in 2014 as a demo and testing facility. So it is right now used and continues to be used as a demo and testing facility for exploring and testing technology and processes that allow us to actually produce high quality advanced purified water consistently. It costs about $72 million, and it is a partnership between Valley Water and the cities of San Jose and Santa Clara. So what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to virtually walk you through each of the steps that the water undergoes. We'll be doing it, in about 15, 20 minutes. It takes the water about 7.5 hours to make the entire circuit that we're going to walk you through right now, in order for it to go from secondary treated water to be considered advanced purified water. So we're actually going to start at station number 2, which are intake pumps. Now, KJ already mentioned that the secondary treated water we are receiving undergoes about 10 hours of treatment before it comes to us. Now, before we submit this water through the advanced purification processes, we are also going to pre-treat it at this facility. And there's 3 things that need to happen before we can start advanced purification. The water needs to be pressurized, it needs to be disinfected, and it needs to be strained. So what you're seeing in front of you right now are our 4 intake pumps. So their sole job is to pressurize the water. And what we're doing is the water comes to the facility and it flows via gravity through about 1/4 mile pipeline. So by the time it gets to us, there's no pressure, there's no energy in that water. So these pumps are going to help us increase the pressure of the water to 40 PSI or 40 pounds per square inch. And the reason that we're pressurizing the water is that so we can actually push it through the treatment processes. After the water has been pressurized, as it makes its way onto the next station, which are our auto strainers, we are going to be adding disinfectants to the water. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to make sure that we help control for any biogrowth in the water as it moves through the treatment processes. So after it's been pressurized, we've added chloramines to the water to disinfect. Now it's time to strain it. The water that we receive is about river quality water. So there are still some very, very small, suspended solids in the water that you can still kind of see with your naked eye. So the water looks a little bit murky. So the water is actually going to pass through these 4 auto strainers. Inside each of these auto strainers is a stainless steel cylinder that has openings that are about 300 microns in size. So what that means is that any suspended solid in the water that is 300 microns in size or larger will get actually caught inside of this strainer. For comparison, 300 microns is about the width of a human hair. The auto strain water will then flow out through the walls of the cylinder. So the water flows in through the middle and then pushes outward. That water will then move on to advanced purification. All of the contaminants that get removed and get stuck inside of this cylinder are actually vacuumed out. There's a rotating nozzle inside of the cylinder that rotates about every 30 to 40 minutes and suctions out all of those contaminants. Those contaminants are then sent back to the regional wastewater facility for reprocessing. The auto strained water then will move on and will actually start the advanced purification process with the first step. So once again, we started with pressure, we disinfected, we strained that water, and now we're going to move inside of our facility to the first step, which is microfiltration. So very quickly before we do that, we're going to ask you for another quick poll just to make sure that we still have all of you with us. So your question this time around is, by how much do we need to expand the purification center's current capacity of 8 million gallons per day in order to meet the water supply needs of the nearly 2 million residents in Santa Clara County? Do we need to produce 5 times that amount, which would be about 40 million, 10 times that amount, 20 or 50 times? So we're talking about the water needs, indoor water needs of about 2 million residents in Santa Clara County. Let's give you about another 15 seconds or so. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close our poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So ending and sharing. And it looks like most of you say about 20 times more. So I'm actually going to pass it on to KJ so he can take us to the first steps and tell us the answer.
Thank you, Blanca. And yes, you are correct. 20 times more is about the amount of capacity we would have to expand in order to meet all of the needs of the Santa Clara County. All right, so here's an inside look of the facility. And on the right-hand side, we have microfiltration. We're going to talk about this process next. On the left-hand side of the facility is reverse osmosis. And then in the very back, we have the ultraviolet light disinfection reactors back there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is play a little short video for you all about microfiltration, and then we're going to talk about it. A link will be posted in the chat for those having trouble viewing. You can view after the tour.
During microfiltration, water is forced through racks of vessels, with each vessel containing thousands of hollow fibers. The outer wall of each fiber is made up of tiny pores, only 0.4 microns in size, or about 300 times smaller than the width of a human hair. The fibers filter out microscopic particles such as silt, protozoa cysts, bacteria, and even viruses. Microfiltration vessels are backwashed periodically to remove any buildup of particles on the membrane walls. The backwash water is returned to the pretreatment tank for reprocessing. This helps the plant recover a higher amount of pure water.
All right, so microfiltration. Microfiltration is exactly what it sounds like. It's filtration on a microscopic level, all right? And so we already removed all of the larger material out of the water. And so now we're trying to get a little bit more specific, removing smaller material. So what happens there, all of these vessels that you see in front of you, there are 896 of them at this facility, and water enters through the bottom of the vessel and it shoots all the way to the top of the vessel. But along the way, there are contaminants removed from the water. So let's take a look on how this is done. So we have an image here of the inside look of each one of these vessels, okay? And this is an actual display that we have on campus for people to see as well and touch. And so, in this time that we're in, we probably won't have anybody touching it just for everybody being safe, right? But this is a display. And so what happens is water enters from the bottom of the vessel and it shoots all the way to the top. Now, each one of these fibers, there are up to 6,000 of them. Each one of these fibers in this vessel has small openings, tiny openings on the sides of them. You cannot see them, don't even try, okay? Small openings about 300 times smaller than the width of a human hair. And so the water must enter these openings before it can actually enter the fiber itself. So the openings that you do see on the top of these fibers are the inside of the fibers in which the water will squeeze into. But the tiny pores that I'm referring to in which the water must squeeze into is on the sides of the fibers that you cannot see. Once again, 300 times smaller than the width of a human hair, and pressure is used to squeeze the water through here. So a lot of large bacteria are removed from the water at this point. And we measure this in micron size because we know the size of a water molecule. We're going to talk about that a little shortly. And so we know also the size of these bacteria, which tend to be very large, okay? And so that's the process there. Microfiltration is backwashed every 30 minutes. All debris and contaminants are sent back to the regional wastewater facility for proper disposal. All right, once the water leaves microfiltration, we're ready to go outside to get some sun at our interprocess tank. The interprocess tank serves two main functions. First, it provides the water from the backwash system that I just spoke about. The second function is that it regulates the flow of the water going to our reverse osmosis feed pumps. All right, so it's really an interprocess tank, intermission tank for water to be held. And so now we're going to go to the back of the facility. We're still going to remain outside and go to our reverse osmosis feed pumps. And there are 3 of these pumps. Now, unlike the pumps that we talked about earlier, these pumps are pressurized anywhere between 130 and 140 PSI, pounds per square inch. And the reason for that is because it's preparing the water for reverse osmosis, which removes even smaller material out of the water, all right? And so I talked about seawater earlier, and basically, people say, hey, we have all this ocean water. Why don't we use this ocean water for our water supply? Well, some places in the world, there are people doing this, and depending where you are geographically located, you may receive less imported water or less rainfall. So you're a little bit forced to, go with using ocean water and desalinating it. Desalination is the removal of salt content out of the ocean water. The only issue with desalination is that it requires a lot of energy. And to give you an example, these same pumps that you see here that are pressurized anywhere between 130 and 140 PSI, these same pumps will need to be pressurized anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 PSI in order to safely and securely remove the salt content out of that water. More energy requires more electricity, which requires more money. So desalination right now is not the most efficient process in order to purify water at the moment. But as technology advances, hopefully one day we will get to that point, all right? And so we just like to point that out at this section of the tour. And so once the water is pressurized, it's ready to move back inside the facility for what's called reverse osmosis. And we have a video here for you all to view on reverse osmosis. And we will recap a little bit about the video and tell you about reverse osmosis after the video. Once again, a link will be posted in the chat for those that missed any material.
Reverse osmosis works by forcing water through a special plastic membrane sheet to remove compounds such as salt, organic compounds, microorganisms, and viruses. Rolls of membrane sheets are wound into cylinder-shaped elements. There are several elements inside each long-pressure vessel. As water enters the vessel, it flows over the membrane surface as it moves from one end of the vessel to the other. The membrane layer is extremely thin. It allows water to pass through or permeate while preventing other compounds from passing through. Membranes remove molecules based on their size, shape, and charge. Generally, contaminants larger than water molecules will not pass through, including most chemical contaminants and all microorganisms, such as virus and bacteria. Two streams of water are produced. Pure, clean water, called permeate, flows across the membrane sheets and passes through the membrane layers to the inside core tube. Water that does not permeate through the membrane becomes more highly concentrated in salt and other substances. This water is called concentrate. The pure permeate water flows out the tube at one end of the pressure vessel, and the concentrate water flows out another outlet. The concentrate water can then flow into other pressure vessels for the same process to happen again, so even more pure permeate water can be recovered. About 82% of all the source water becomes purified water.
All right, the main thing I want you all to remember about reverse osmosis is that reverse osmosis removes anything larger than a water molecule out of the water. Water molecules are very small on a microscopic level, okay? And so like once again, I told you, we measure this in micron size. And so about 82% of the water that flows through these reverse osmosis cartridges are recaptured, and we call that permeate. The other 18% that does not make it through is called concentrate. Concentrate can consist of salts, viruses, organic matter, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and even pesticides in this water. And we have a water quality lab that tests for all these things. You can learn again more about the water quality lab at our water infrastructure tour series. And just to give you an idea, on a microscopic level, bacteria and even viruses, the large bacteria and viruses on a microscopic level are rather large, okay? And to give you an idea, a large bacteria or virus trying to pass through reverse osmosis would be similar to trying to squeeze a skyscraper through a marble-sized hole. As you know, that is all impossible. And so for the more smaller bacteria, right, trying to squeeze through reverse osmosis will be similar to an adult-sized human being trying to squeeze through a marble-sized hole. Also impossible. And so reverse osmosis is used worldwide. Even some of the people that create bottled water, some of them use this as well, use this technology, okay? And so now I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic back to Blanca so she can tell you about our last couple of processes that we have at the Purification Center.
Apologies, I was having a fight with my mute button. You think after 18 months we would have figured it out, but still struggling here. All right, so we are about to wrap up our tour. After the water has gone through the reverse osmosis process, it's basically already at 40 TDS. So we've basically been able to remove everything that we are going to be able to remove through advanced purification process. But we want to do just one more thing to make sure that the water is absolutely safe and high quality. So before we send it to the last step of the advanced purification process, the water goes back outside of the facility to this decarbonation towers. What we are doing here is we're actually wanting to remove the CO2, the dissolved CO2 that's in the water. And the way that we do it is that we actually cascade the water over thousands of diffuser balls like the ones that you're seeing here. And the reason we want to do that is we want to remove that CO2. That's one of the things that actually manages to get through the reverse osmosis. So this is similar to basically like a soda or like a sparkling water. And so what we're trying to do is basically shake the water so that the carbon dioxide can actually be bubbled up and released through the release valve at the top of this towers. The CO2 emissions are so minimal that they're completely allowed, and we don't even need to have any kind of special permit or licensing in order to be able to do that. Now, why would we want to do this? The primary reason is that carbonated water is actually highly acidic. And so by removing the CO2, we're able to increase the pH, which means we're decreasing its acidity. and prevent it from being too corrosive or damaging downstream infrastructure because of the acidity of the water if we were to leave it in its acidic state. Once we remove the CO2, then the water will go back inside of the facility for the last treatment process, which is UV light disinfection. So once again, we have a quick video for you, and then we'll chat about it.
The next stage is ultraviolet light. The water is exposed to strong UV light. This process removes any trace organic molecules. The process is similar to the one used in medicine and dentistry to sterilize equipment.
UV light disinfection. So we have a total of 6 trains, each of them made up by 2 UV light reactors. Inside of each of these reactors, there's a total of 40 high intensity UV lights. Now, this is a safety precaution. And what we're doing here is exposing water to high intensity UV light as a way of deactivating any pathogens that might have actually gotten through the system. So we're talking about disrupting the DNA of any pathogen so that they're not able to multiply and reproduce, and also breaking the bonds of any chemical compounds that might be in the water after we finish with the reverse osmosis. So as I mentioned, inside of each of these reactors, we have this 40 high intensity UV light bulbs, and the water really only needs about 30 seconds of exposure. So inside the reactor, that blue pipe that you saw earlier, it's mirrored so that when the light is being, when the UV light is exposure is happening, the mirror helps bounce the light around to make sure that basically we get to all the water supply. Once it's been treated, then the pathogens have been deactivated, DNA has been disrupted to, once again, to make sure that they won't be able to reproduce once they leave our facility. Now, currently we don't have the permits in place to be able to actually drink this water. And the reason for that is that we have to add one more step to the advanced purification treatment process, and that is called advanced oxidation. The plant is currently in the process of adding advanced oxidation. And what this will do is that it will actually add trace amounts of hydrogen peroxide to the water to reinforce the disinfection. Once that is in place, then this water meets all the requirements by the state of California for it to be used for potable or drinking purposes. We are expecting that the advanced oxidation system will be online in about a year or so. Now that we produce, a day up to 8 million gallons of advanced purified water, it'll go the last stop in our facility is going to be the finishing tank. So this is a 2.25 million gallon tank. It's just a holding space for the water while it waits to then go on to the South Bay water recycling for blending with tertiary water for the purple pipe system. There are currently about 800 clients that use the advanced purified water, among them, places like Levi Stadium, San Jose State University, the Apple campus. And once again, they're using it for their landscape. They're using it, to flush their toilets, for cooling systems. And the reason that's important is that then we're not using drinking water for those purposes. The other role that this tank actually serves is that one of the things we haven't mentioned is that this is a fully automated facility. What that means is that we're only producing water on demand. So if there's no need for the water, the facility automatically shuts down. So basically when this tank is full, because we're not using it, the facility will shut down completely. Water will start to go, as we start using it and the level goes down. Once it reaches a certain threshold, then everything will automatically turn on and restart the production of advanced purified water. And this is just another way for us to build that efficiency into the system. All right, so that pretty much wraps up our walking tour of the Purification Center. Just as a quick reminder, this is a demo and research facility, but the purpose of this facility is to help us explore and plan out for what eventually will be potable reuse, meaning using the water for drinking purposes. Valley Water and it's part of the county-wide water reuse master plan, which seeks to provide up to 10% of the water of the county's water supply through recycled water. And what does this mean? This means increasing the enhanced and recycled water uses, but also, once again, going into potable reuse, either directly or indirectly. So what we mean by this indirectly means that we're using either our groundwater basins as a way of, as a stopping, I guess you could say, holding our storage space before we actually use it for drinking purposes. Directly means that the advanced purified water will be put directly into our water supply or our water supply distribution system. Now, Valley Water, in terms of our next steps towards this potable reuse, Valley Water is currently in conversations to offer a new facility that would provide an additional 10 million gallons of advanced purified water per day. We are in conversations with both the city of Palo Alto and the city of San Jose. It'll be at one of those two sites. We're not sure yet where. The map that you're seeing here is showing you potential facility places where it might be, whether it's Palo Alto or San Jose. The San Jose facility would actually be adjacent to the current Advanced Purification Center. Now, the difference is that with this new facility, we are also looking to build the conveying system, meaning the pipeline that will take that advanced purified water from the treatment facility down to the Los Gatos percolation ponds. Why? Because that's the site that has been chosen as a site through which we would use this advanced purified water to help replenish our groundwater aquifers. And so we're able to use the Earth's natural filtration system to remineralize that advanced purified water, where it will make it down to our groundwater basin, and then there it would blend with the existing water before it's extracted for drinking purposes. The longer term goal is to actually be able to produce or increase our water reuse by 24,000 acre feet. So if you remember our conversion, that would be enough water for about 240,000 people for up to a year. So it's a significant increase to our water reuse in the county. All right, with that, thank you so much for being here with us today. We are going to start the Q&A. Before I do that, we're going to do a little bit of multitasking. I'm going to also launch a post for survey. We would appreciate your input on that one. For those of you that are interested, as KJ mentioned, we do have a water infrastructure tour. If you want to learn more about some of the other work that Valley Water does in the county, if you have little ones or if you are a teacher yourself, we have a number of distance learning opportunities for K through 12, all around water and environmental stewardship. And if you're interested, you can also sign up for the Valley Water e-news. So you can get a monthly newsletter with the latest information on all things Valley Water, water supply, environmental stewardship, and flood protection. If you are interested in staying involved, a couple of things to keep in mind is if you want more information specifically about advanced purified water and the Purification Center, you can visit our website, purewaterforyou.org. You can also just check out our valleywater.org grants. If you're a community member, if you're a community leader, if you're a teacher, if you're part of a nonprofit organization, we do have a number of funding opportunities to help you and support your water and environmental stewardship work in the community. KJ mentioned also at the beginning the creek cleanup that we just did as part of California Coastal Cleanup this last weekend. Valley Water organizes a number of community cleanups for our creeks and waterways, but you can also sign up to adopt a creek, for example, where you can adopt a specific segment of one of our waterways. Valley Water will coordinate with you to provide you all the supplies, and all you have to do is commit to going out there and and picking up litter at least twice a year. All right. Also, we are right now, because of where we are in terms of our water supply needs, and what we're seeing is becoming more of a need, to really look into how do we recapture more of the water and reuse more of our water. We are offering this presentations to any community groups, church groups, school groups. So if you're part of a group that you think would be important for them to learn more about this and would like to invite us to come over and share this information with them, we'd love to, to talk to you. So you can contact us, and we'd be happy to come out and talk to other groups as well. But also, you participated in this tour, so anything that you can do to help us spread the word is greatly appreciated in terms of just making sure that our community has the correct information about what we're doing in terms of water reuse and advanced purification. For those of you that want to host a watch party for your groups, we do actually provide a free swag bag for your party. If you are interested, once again, just let us know. And finally, we are going to go ahead and open the floor for questions. And I am going to go ahead and launch that last poll as well, so that we can do a little multitasking. So KJ, do you want to get us started with the questions?
Yes. So let's go ahead and check out the questions we have. For the links to the videos, my apologies. Yes, those links are not working at the moment. We might have some replacement links for you, but in the meantime, let me go ahead and get started on these questions. So the first question we have is, can I use reverse osmosis water for the plants? Absolutely is the answer to that question. After reverse osmosis, typically the water is, very clear. As we said, pretty much everything is removed from the water. Anything left in the water at the purification center is taken care of by UV treatment. But yes, in general, after reverse osmosis, you can definitely use this water for plants. Some people at their home actually have a reverse osmosis system that they use, and some may use it for drinking water or also for their plants as well. All right, next question we have, how can that be 20 times more? That is 80 gallons per person per day, question mark. So when we say 20 times more, we are just referring to if the purification center had to supply all of the water needs for the Santa Clara County, we would need to increase the capacity of the purification center 20 times more. But we even know that that wouldn't even be necessary because we have other means of securing our water supply as well. That's just to give you an idea that it would need to increase 20 times more if it was the sole source for water of the Santa Clara County, which it is not, if that makes sense. All
and
right.
Also the other thing, just to add a little clarification, is that number is, we're talking about the mostly indoor needs of the 2 million residents. That doesn't include industry, that doesn't include agriculture and some of the other uses that we have within our county. So just to clarify the question. And then KJ, if I can actually butt in for a second.
Yes.
I noticed that there was a question on the chat about what is the delta, and I apologize if I didn't make that clear. So the San Joaquin Sacramento River Delta is actually where both the San Joaquin and Sacramento rivers meet. It's located in Northeast Bay. And so it's a major source of fresh water for not just us, but actually the state. About 29 million Californians depend on water from this region, which is basically a wetland, to meet their drinking water needs. So it's an important water supply for us as well as other people. And in times of drought, the challenge is that we're competing with those 29 million people who also depend on that water.
If you haven't already, please answer the post-tour survey, the poll that we launched, but also take a look at the chat. We posted a link. And so the poll is for us to get a temperature check of how you feel after the tour regarding purified water. And then the link in the chat, that's the survey. That is a link to give us feedback on our presentation itself. All right, we have some more questions in the chat. I see, please send your questions to the Q&A portion, but I'll go ahead and scroll the chat. I'll go from the newest to the oldest. So what's the ideal range for drinking water? I'm assuming you're referring to TDS, ideal range, I'm assuming. Yes. Well, TDS, once again, only measures the solid content in the water, not necessarily how safe it is. There are some bottled waters worldwide that have even up to, I believe, 600 TDS in it. So it's really just a measurement of, the minerals in the water, not how safe the water is itself. So I'm not sure I can give you a ideal answer for that question, if that makes sense. Oh, the
And
poll is
also,
showing the
sorry,
poll.
just to add real quick, I know we're at 7 p.m. and some of you may actually need to disconnect. We're happy to stay for a little bit longer to answer some of the questions. But if you need to leave, please feel free to email us with your question and we'll follow up with you. Also, the survey that you're seeing on your screen, and I believe we've added the link to the chat. You can also have an opportunity to submit your question with your email through that survey, and we will follow up with you as well. If you have any questions that we haven't gotten to yet.
I just relaunched the poll right now. It was showing the results. So those that couldn't access the poll, you can access it now. Thank you.
Thank you, KJ. There is a question in the Q&A about what is the cost of this purification water. So I'm not 100% sure what the question is, so I'll give you a couple of numbers and hopefully we get to your answer. So currently the cost to operate the facility, and we're talking, operation and management of the facility, including personnel, is about $4.9 million per year. So it's a little expensive in terms, when you look at just numbers like that. When we're talking about the cost of the actual water, so the cost per acre foot that is produced of the facility, the cost is about $1,630 per acre foot. However, this is actually still cheaper than the imported water that we bring in. For example, if you think of the water that's coming in from Pacheco, that's water that needs to be moved over 150 miles before it gets to us. So it's very, very energy demanding. It takes a lot of electricity, a lot of power to move that water that distance. So, if we can increase our production here in terms of the offset cost, it's still cheaper than imported water to use that advanced purified water, because we have a reliable source of secondary treated water locally. So the conveying cost sometimes can offset the increased cost of production locally.
Go ahead, Blanca.
So I was gonna read the next question. Sorry. I have reverse osmosis at home and it generates wastewater in the RO process. Can I use this water for plants, etc.? Yes, you can. The efficiency of RO concentrate in home systems can vary quite a bit. And one of the reasons for that is that actually home systems aren't as efficient as the system that we have here. The RO concentrate that we're producing at the Purification Center, we're talking about, TDS of like 3,000-4,000. The home system's not going to be able to produce that level simply because you don't have the pressure that would require for it to be that efficient. So depending on how efficient your system is, if you're talking about really high concentrate, that would be a problem. But these home systems, I think I saw a number that they're something like 8 or 9% efficient or something like that. So you're not, even though it's concentrate from your home system, is not nearly as concentrated as what we produce at the facility. All right, next question. What can we do to improve groundwater levels as individual people and families? Part of it, and I would recommend, please be sure to join our Stop 1, which is our water supply tour when we have it as part of the water infrastructure tour, simply because we'll actually have some of our subject matter experts on that tour. So that includes our dam safety deputy director, who will be available to answer questions. But one of the things with groundwater is it feeds on what percolates down. And so it's not a major impact, but one of the things that, is recommended, for example, is make sure that we, if you're doing your driveway or things like that, that we try to keep as many permeable surfaces as we can, so that when we do get rain, as much water is able to actually seep through our ground and eventually make it down to our groundwater. The other thing is conservation. If we don't need to pump out more water than absolutely necessary, that's going to be a huge help, especially right now when we're actually experiencing drought. Because it's not being replenished. In a typical year when, when we're extracting water and we have imported water coming in, we use some of that imported water to continue to replenish that groundwater basin. But right now we don't have that water supply. So we're really just limiting replenishing to areas that absolutely need to be replenished. So for example, South County depends 100% on groundwater. They don't have access to that water from the treatment plants that comes in from imported sources or from our reservoirs. So we need to make sure that we can continue to replenish that system so that the people that live in South County are able to continue to have access to clean water. So right now, currently in this state that we're in, anything that you can do to save and conserve water is going to help all of us meet our needs and making sure that we're not overtaxing our groundwater aquifers. There's a question, and I'm not sure if you have an answer for this one, KJ. As the purification production or as the new facility comes online, how much CO2 would be generated from off-gassing compared to sources like fossil fuels, et cetera?
Is this question in the Q&A?
Yeah.
Or is in the chat? Okay. Okay, I see it now. So not much CO2 is generated through this process. As you can see from the decarbonation towers, we have, two air release valves at each of the towers, and it's below, federal and state mandates for carbon emission. It's very low. And speaking of which, there was a question earlier asking about the energy we use at the Purification Center, and all of the energy used at the Purification Center is renewable energy. All right. And so, as Blanca said earlier, at the intake pumps, water is flowing from across the street from the regional wastewater facility to the Purification Center by way of gravity. And so we consider all of these, environmental hazards or problems that could be potentially an issue. And we take that into account with the purifying process as well. And so I hope I answered that first question as far as the CO2 emission.
And actually, I have an equivalent. So currently, if you were to translate that CO2 that's currently being produced by the plant, that's the equivalent up to about the CO2 that's produced by a gallon of gasoline right now. So I'm not sure if that means much to you, but that's kind of one way that we have a conversion to compare what we're actually producing at the facility. All righty. Are there any sea level rise risks for any of the advanced water purification site, water treatment plants, etc.? You want to take it, or do you want me to take it, KJ?
We can both chime in. I'll say this: the Purification Center is built above sea level on purpose for this reason, because we are dealing with water, same as the regional wastewater facility. So in case of, heavy rainfall and things of that nature, to prevent flooding, and, as you're talking about the risk of sea level rise, that is why it is built in elevation on purpose to prevent things like this from happening. If you have anything to add to that, Blanca, please. Yeah,
the facility was actually built about 10 feet above sea level, precisely thinking about the fact that could be a possibility. It is located in the El Viso area, right next to the coast, and the El Viso area, there's some areas that are very prone to flood, and that's part of the considerations when the facility was designed. All righty, let's see. We have a few more questions. I think we'll stay in for a few more minutes. Why are we not capturing more of the rainwater that runs down our creeks directly into the bay, particularly during rainy season? There is a lot of water to be had. So once again, this is part of our water infrastructure tour. Stops number 1, water supply, but I'll chime in for a second here. One of it has, we have 10 reservoirs already strategically located that help capture some of that runoff. The challenge here, there's a couple of things. One is water that's going down the creeks is not necessarily, being wasted. Some of the water flowing down the creeks will actually help replenish our groundwater aquifers. And the largest by far storage facility that we have for water is our groundwater aquifer. The other thing also is we need to be, we need to balance our needs, but also the needs of the natural environment. And so that water flowing that creek down the creeks isn't just helping to replenish our groundwater aquifer, but it's also helping to sustain the ecosystem that this waterways support. And so we had a question some tours back when someone asked about, for example, during floods, why don't we recapture all of that water? And the other challenge is an infrastructure challenge, right? Which we don't necessarily think about. But, when we have lots of rain, what creek will flood, we really can't predict, right? And then even if you manage to capture that water, you have to get it to a location, whether it's a perk pond or one of our reservoirs, which means you need to have the conveyance system in place to be able to actually move that water from wherever you captured it in our county to where we can actually store it. And so there's a number of issues with that. And so once again, is the surface reservoirs that we do have are strategic place to help us maximize the amount of water that we captured. And then, there's water that's going to flow down. But, one of the things, for example, there's about 90 million gallons of tertiary treated water that we're releasing out into the San Francisco Bay every day. If we could recapture more of that water, through advanced purification and recycling, that's less water we need to actually worry about capturing from rain, which is very inconsistent. And, we don't necessarily know where it's going to fall. And so that would be my 2 cents there. But like I said, join us for that stop number 1 of the water infrastructure tour. And I'm sure that our subject matter experts can actually provide you a lot more detail. Okay. Is there anything you can do about the taste? I understand it is safe to drink, but it tastes awful. Yeah, it does. There are no minerals, so advanced purified water. Yeah, you don't want to drink it like that. It's almost like drinking distilled water, and you definitely don't want to be drinking distilled water. There are a number of things that can be done. For example, we've mentioned that if we are going to use it for drinking purposes here in Santa Clara County, right now the plan is to use it as a way to replenish our groundwater aquifer. By putting it in a percolation pond, the water would get remineralized naturally. So a lot of the same water, the minerals that are, within our natural environment would, the water would leach them out on its way down to the aquifer. I know that Orange County Water District, which has been using advanced purified water to replenish their groundwater aquifers for many years now. And I think they're over 100 million gallons of advanced purified water that they're pumping into their groundwater basin a day. They actually do some mineralization of the water before they pump it down into the groundwater aquifer as a way of putting some of those critical minerals that the water likes to have. All right. For new construction project, does city has any thoughts to consider mandatory guidelines to build some rainwater storage underground? I'm not sure if we're talking about like our groundwater basin, which is already our kind of natural groundwater storage, or are you talking about like rain capture systems? And if it's rain capture systems, are you talking like something that you would build in your home to capture rainwater, or are you talking about like a citywide massive rain capture system? So yes, rain capture systems. So Valley Water actually has, and KJ, if you can help me pull up the rain capture link and drop it in the chat, that'd be great. Valley Water has a number of programs to support like rain barrels and things along those lines. So we'll drop the link in the chat if you're interested in learning more about that. You can actually contact Valley Water and there's, I believe, even a rebate program to support with the implementation of a rain capture system within home. Most people that I know of that have been doing rain capture systems are actually doing barrels, rain barrels. They're not doing the storage ones that you actually built underground as almost like a groundwater, like a tank type thing. But the information will be on that, and we'll put it in the chat shortly for you. All righty, I think we are down to one question. How did the plant's construction get funded? Do you have any information on that, KJ?
I don't have specifics on when it was funded, but it was a 7-year process and officially opened up in 2014. And so as far as the funding, I know the Purification Center is a partnership between the city of San Jose, the city of Santa Clara, and Wastewater. So collectively, they came to an agreement and allocated funds together, but I can't give you the specifics on those funds.
Yeah, I don't have that, but Robin, I will take your information down. If you can shoot me a private message, we'll be sure to follow up with you. Send me your email or put it in the survey, and we'll follow up with you once we check in with our project team. All right. It looks like that. Oh, wait. Whoops. I think we're done, and then I scroll down. There's another question. What would it take for the purple pipe advanced purification water to become a major part of drinking water in our taps? This seems like a way to go in the long run. Is this a question of money? Look, okay. So the first thing is California. In California, we are not legally allowed to do direct potable reuse yet. They are currently working on the regulations to authorize direct potable reuse. And what that means is that you would take the advanced purified water and put it directly into the drinking water distribution system. We are expecting that those regulations will come out probably around 2023, 2024. So that's really what's preventing direct potable reuse in California. We don't have the rules and legislations in place to be able to do that yet. The only thing that we currently have regulations in place for is indirect potable reuse, which is basically through like groundwater replenishment or surface water replenishment. And so hopefully in the near future, Valley Water is definitely already talking about the possibility of pursuing a direct potable reuse project once we have the regulations, so that we know what is required by the state of California in order to be able to allow that. But that's really the a major hurdle at this point for direct potable reuse. But yeah, if you're doing direct potable reuse, that means that you just need to have the pipeline that can put it directly into your distribution system, which is more feasible than having to build infrastructure for either a separate distribution system, etc. All right, done. And I think this is going to be our last question. Thank you so much for y'all that have hung with us, for almost an extra 20 minutes. If percolation ponds are used to mineralize the treated water, will we not eventually leach out soil and deplete it or of these minerals? That's a really interesting question. And the best I could do would be take a guess, and I don't want to. So Teresa, I think we'll follow up with you. Depending on the minerals, I mean, if you think about Earth as a system, there's runoff that's coming off from like mountains that are depositing sediments in different parts of our valley. So there's a number of things that are happening. It's a very dynamic system. And so I would need to check with our project or SMEs on that one. But the best thing I can think of is that's one of the things that we would be monitoring for. Right now we're monitoring the quality of the groundwater continuously to make sure that it's still safe, that it's still good to go. And then depending on what we're finding as we're testing water and from wells directly from the groundwater basin, etc., then we can take steps to make sure that we can counteract anything that we find that might pose a risk to our water supply. All right.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you Valley Water, KJ and Blanca for joining us as well and giving us all the information, answering all of our questions. If you'd like to go to the Poet Author event next week on September 30th, I had dropped it in the chat. But other than that, I hope everyone has a good night.